This is the Classic Auto Mall Show. Broadcast from the studios inside the Classic Auto Mall in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Just 1 hour west of Philadelphia at Pennsylvania Turnpike exit 298. Featuring nearly 1,000 classic, vintage, and barn-find vehicles for sale under one climate-controlled roof. Now, here's your host, Classic Auto Mall president and the man with all the toys, Stuart Howden.
And here we are, show number 185.
Holy hot tamale.
Hot tamale. That's crazy. 185. Of course, we haven't done, actually, this is our 185th week.
Happy birthday to Stuart Howden today, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Little clapping.
Thanks for stopping.
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
And thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
I don't think that's it, but, oh, there. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Is there still new stuff? I'm still working.
Yeah. We're still
works.
trying to fix it all in the mix, right? So, thank you for the birthday wishes. It's been, I have a board meeting tonight that I have to go to.
Yeah,
and,
it's a regular day, man.
It's just a regular day, and just the older you get, I think the more regular it becomes. Right. Let's hope so. Let's hope it stays regular.
Nope.
And
no pin the tail on the donkey for you today.
No, I want a pinata.
Let's hope you stay regular.
Yeah, we'll stay regular.
My brother-in-law's birthday is 86 in Indiana, John Carpenter. So his birthday present was he found a dead deer in his backyard.
Nice. That's, to some people, I hit a deer one time driving down the highay, and I called the sheriff's department because that was what you're supposed to do. And the guy said, "You won't keep him?" I go, "Well, no, not really. What would I do with him?" And he goes, "Oh, you eat him. You put him in your fridge."
Right.
I go, "Oh, okay."
That's right.
Didn't think about that. Anyway, before we get to our wonderful guest,
Yeah.
How many cars in inventory this very moment?
10, 15.
You're so
$999.
How about, wait a minute, I don't have it here.
I forget what it was last week.
It was under.
You don't have it?
979.
Ooh.
Both
overbid.
It is very airy out there, actually. You can walk around.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of room going on.
And last day of winter.
Is that today?
It's today, and it's spring-like. People are walking around. I think consignments will be going up.
I think so too. I think that number will change. So be prepared to put your thinking cap on next week and know what it is. So
All right.
Let's quit jibber jabbering and get to our wonderful guest who's gotten up early on the left coast to join us via Colton, Oregon, I believe we're in. Steve Austin. Good morning, Steve.
Hi there.
We wanted to clarify to our listeners and viewers that you're not Stone Cold Steve Austin, nor
I feel like sometimes.
or the Steve Austin $6 Million Man spelled with an E, I guess is.
Yeah. And a man just barely alive.
And barely. That's the way I feel most days, anyway. Just good to be vertical, right? So Steve has been planning vacations. A travel planner is a disservice to what you do. You've had a career with making vacations, making dreams come true for people for how many years now? How many years have you been doing this?
45 years if I take when I officially started.
Wow.
But before that, I was playing around with it, with just taking people in different parts of Europe, and then finally decided it was time to make a proper business out of it.
Yeah, how wonderful.
I found out I was unemployable. And that got me into the business.
But how wonderful. You think, okay, what would I like to do? I'd like to travel around. I'd like to meet a bunch of famous race car drivers. I'd like to go and have the best seats at the tracks. I'd like to have gourmet meals and get paid for it. That sounds like a hell of a career.
Hey, I should try that.
yeah, I'm going to sign up. But I remember seeing your ads from many, many years ago on events before it was even really, F1 hasn't been hugely popular in the United States for a few years, it seems like, although there's been lots of us who have been into it for many years. But you were doing tours before people really even knew a lot about F1. Were people newbies, or were they people that were just diehard fans going on these trips?
Well, I think most probably that really it all started when I started doing tours. I had nothing to do with motor racing car stuff. There wasn't a market there.
Right.
Period. It was my personal thrill. It was my personal enjoyment, but I couldn't fill any seats.
Right.
So I tell people, you want to go do this. I spent 10 years doing walking tours across Europe.
Wow.
And it was wonderful. I loved it. I loved the people I had with me. There were small groups of 12 people. But after 10 years, I realized that I had managed to keep the family alive, but that was it.
Right.
We weren't making any money. And so I expanded the size of the tours I was doing, but I realized that I needed to find a niche. And it all kind of came together in actually backed into it.
Right.
I was a lot of my programs used to go into Monaco. It was a favorite place. And in fact, I ended up having a store and a business out of there. But it was really a meeting at one of the Grand Prix. I went to see a display, an art display, and a lot of famous people there and so on. And so one of these kind of well-known people, Sir Jackie,
just Sir Jackie,
was signing a painting, and I started talking to him, and of course he is a very, very astute businessman, and he said, "Steve, why don't you do this?" So I said, "What? Sell artwork?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "There's a heck of a market in England, and in the States it's going to come along." And he was right.
Sure.
And so basically, I gave it some thought, and then I got into it. Strange thing is, my first showing was at Monaco in 1994, and Ayrton Senna got killed the week before.
Oh my goodness!
It was like, you want to walk into a room and everybody's dead silent.
The air just comes out of the room, right?
Yeah, the worst time. I mean, it was, people distraught.
Right.
Obviously the Grand Prix went off and so on and so forth, but it was a terrible start.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, you just didn't expect your hero, for those of us who are into Formula One to just, I don't know, you just think those guys are invincible until they're not.
Yeah. And still, it still is hard to imagine, but you have to accept the fact that it happened, and it was just dramatically awful.
Right.
The strange thing is about 10 years later, Bernie Ecclestone said that the best thing for Formula One during the 90s was Ayrton Senna getting killed. He said it's a terrible way for Formula One to get noticed. But he said after Senna was killed, there was a great amount of people starting to find out what is this Formula One all about. Right. And then very fortunately, we got a period where Ferrari ascended. Michael Schumacher came along.
That was huge.
And the combination of Ferrari and Schumacher made certainly Monaco a go-to place.
Absolutely.
And that's when I first really realized if I was going to bring people into a place such as Monaco, I had to do it better than anybody else.
Right.
And so, and I didn't want to do the Grand Prix because everybody in the world was doing the Grand Prix.
Right.
But in '97, when the historic started, some of the hospitality suites, which are very expensive in any case, but during the Formula One, they're outrageous, even back in those days. I went to one of the people who operate these Formula One hospitalities, and actually it was the suite that McLaren used. And there was another suite which, hang on, I got to remember who it was now. It was Mercedes.
Right.
and it was on a rooftop right over the start-finish line.
Mm.
And it was amazing. We're just looking straight down on the track. And it really was the start of getting things right. We had a company come in from Paris who did all the food and the drinking and so on.
Right.
It turned out to be not particularly a bright move by me, but it just worked out very well.
So and was this race a week before or a week after Monaco?
Those days it was excuse me. Those days it was a week before. Sorry, I got a morning voice. And the morning, it was always a week before.
Right.
Until I think around 2000, Bernie decided that he didn't want oil still down on the track when the actual Grand Prix came into town. So he made it that the historics had to be run 2 weeks before.
Right.
And,
Well, Everybody says that the best time to go to Monaco was the week before when they were the week before, because you got all the glamour and everything going on, but you don't have those exorbitant. I mean, I can imagine the cheapest ticket to Monaco now has got to be ridiculously expensive.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, if you just want, it used to be that 10 years ago you could do a pit walk and it was only an hour walk,
right?
Through pits and so on. That was $10,000. Now, I honestly don't know anymore because I've lost track with the Formula. Sounds it.
You're right.
That was great. But, but I think it's like double that now, and in fact, I think that it's got to a point now where you have to know somebody to be able to fork out the money. But what I did was basically went to this hospitality people and said, "Look, if I do a long-term contract with you, can I get this spot guaranteed?"
Right.
Every historic, which is only every 2 years.
Oh, gotcha. So it was,
Yeah. So that was great. Made a great arrangement with them. I had an arrangement with a shop in the town where I was selling my artwork, and I had an arrangement for doing the classic, the Monaco historic. And then that centered me in a part of the country where I could then go off and do other events and so on.
Sure.
And also the piggyback to all my tours. And so it all kind of came together about 1997 when I kind of found the plot.
Right. Yeah.
and it wasn't always great. When I first started, the Revival, for instance.
Right, in Goodwood.
Although the Festival of Speed was first, when the Revival came along, you'd have to be a stupid idiot not to realize that this thing was going to be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I went to Lord March and said, I do this Monaco thing. Is there a way that I can have a hospitality suite, which I know I get every year, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And Lord March, who's now the Duke now, but he was no fool at all. He recognized that there was a good profit in this thing for him.
Sure.
And so I ended up getting the best suite at the Goodwood Revival on the inside of the chicane. It's called the Salvadori Pavilion, but it is the best.
Yeah.
And I'm the first one on, as you come onto the long strip of hospitalities, I'm the first one. I actually have the first two.
Wow.
And that again was a little bit of luck, but it just was really taking the risk because they're terribly, terribly expensive.
Sure. Well, and that seems to be the problem all the way around with things that, we just keep paying more and more for things. And whether it be, the Ritz-Carlton at $1,500 a night at Amelia Island or in Monterey, you have to book your hotel room a year in advance and have to give them, children. You just wonder if they go, same thing with Formula One, if they go, what do you think if we just doubled the price? Wonder if anybody'd still pay it. And they do.
that actually, I think, is very, very true, and a lot. Certainly within the inner workings of Formula One. And
the sad part about it is that I know Formula One's not an everyman sport. It's a sport of a more elite sport than most. It's not NASCAR, but to make it so unaffordable to people, I think you could get a lot of the good old boys interested in it if it wasn't so damned expensive.
Yeah, in a way, it really helped me because I had gone and decided that the classic races was what it was all about.
Sure.
And excuse me.
Well, they're more enjoyable to watch. I mean, because of the sounds and the smells and we talk about this almost every week on our show. Our buddy Harry Hurst has a site on Facebook called The Glory Days of Racing.
Yes, and great.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. But the glory days are the sights and the sounds and the smells. I mean, we preach this almost every week. I mean, the cars nowadays, they sound the same. They all pretty much look the same, and I know that's a cliche, but it's not.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely true. I mean, you can't even tell the number on a Formula One car nowadays.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is that Lewis or Leclerc? I'm not sure. There's,
But what's great about the historic racing throughout the world, this is everywhere, is that the people who are involved, both in the organizing, but also in the operating and the driving, everything, the teams and so on, they're old school people
right.
who aren't or didn't get into the sport because of the money. They got into the sport because they were racers,
right,
or interested in racing, and so they're approachable.
Right.
All of these people are approachable. I don't think there is a driver out there who, if you say I've got a bunch of people who are really interested in something or other, the car you have or the race you're in, will not stop everything and say, "Oh, bring them on, bring them over."
Sure.
And when I started doing the Goodwood Revival, first of all, one of the problems I had in this country was everybody thought it was a religious festival.
Well, it is sort of, right?
That was the first thing I'd say. No.
It's not a revival.
It is a religious festival to a lot of us, but it's not a religious festival.
That's hilarious.
Fortunately, it got a lot of airtime, both sides of the water,
sure.
and it got a great name, and so that went well. But I used to have wonderful man by the name of Alain de Cadenet.
Yes,
I'm sure you must probably, and sadly we lost him. I was actually on a coach going into the Le Mans Classic.
Wow.
When Brian Redmond phoned me on my cell phone and said, "Steve, you should know that Alan just passed." And I have a bus full of people. I literally wept.
Oh, yeah.
I love that man. He was a great raconteur.
Yeah.
He was so knowledgeable. I mean, we lost a magnificent person there, so young.
Such a shame.
Yeah. And of course, it happens, but he was very, very important to my business because he would, obviously you pay these people, but
sure.
They're not making a Rolls Royce out of it,
right.
And they come in and do what we call the color stuff, and Alan was great at it. He was smart, intelligent, and then quite later on, I had Sir Stirling become really very, very involved, and turned out to be a really nice man.
Yeah.
He was an expensive man, but he was wonderful.
Expensively nice.
Yeah. And I actually first met Sir Stirling when I was 10 years of age. And I was at boarding school, and we used to, on the weekend, we were allowed out.
Right.
And we would cycle to the racetracks.
Let me out.
Yeah. And but down the road from us was a little village of Causley where Rob Walker had his garage, and Stirling used to race for Rob Walker a lot.
Right.
And us, 2 or 3 of us were really into it. We'd cycle down there and just wait around in the hope that Stirling would show up.
Or somebody, or anybody, right? Yeah.
And eventually, it did happen a couple of times, and got an autograph and so on. And we were very obvious because we had to be in school uniform, which meant we had a brown jacket and a red cap, a bright red cap. I mean, it looked awful.
Yeah.
In England, you had what they call swan vestus matches, which were called red top matchsticks, and there was a lot of fighting against the locals because we were always called red top match. Anyway,
that's funny.
Years and years later, when I eventually did meet, I'm sorry, just lost my train of thought there for a minute. When I met Sir Stirling to do some art signing.
Right.
And I told him, I said, the first time I met you, I was this high. And I said, I came down to Causley. And he said, you were in a brown jacket and a red cap.
No. I would have died and gone to heaven right there. That was just perfect.
He became very, very helpful, great friend.
Yeah.
I couldn't say he was a friend, a great associate.
Sure.
Sterling had thousands of associates, very few really good friends. And I would hate to call myself a good friend, but I think I was a good associate.
Sure. Well, I think that, a lot of those guys, what you said earlier about it being accessible, those guys, all of them, we've had Brian Redmond on, we've had David Hobbs on. They're just accessible and nice and humble and, just down to earth people, I guess, if that's even a proper thing to say. I mean, they just seemed like that they would love nothing better than to chat with you all day long, and they give you their undivided attention, and it's great. Yeah.
Well, I kind of grew up with almost literally the same age as David. Hobbs, Brian Redmond is a little fraction older, Richard Atwood.
Right.
These were guys I was watching on the track when they were just coming into play, And I remember seeing Derek Bell Goodwood, and I think he was a couple of years older than I was, but I think that was it. He might tell you he was younger. But,
well, we know how that works, right?
But all these guys, who I watched when I was a kid, when I started getting back, there was a long period in my life, like a 25-year period in my life, where I really didn't associate with motor racing because I was too busy trying to survive.
Right.
It wasn't an option. So I was doing all the other tours and doing all sorts of programs, but it wasn't motor racing. So when I did get back into being interested in motor racing, I literally had to get on the phone to people who I had not talked to in, years and years and years and years. And one of the first guys who was so helpful was Brian Redman and Marion, his wife, who is absolutely a delightful lady.
Sure.
And they were the first ones who would actually come on the tour, and they would be the color people on. They would be on the bus. Brian is just wonderful. He can sit there and just tell stories.
Sure.
Never run out of them.
Right. Yeah.
So it made my life very easy because I tried to do some color. I was pretty okay at history at school, and so therefore I knew a lot of history about the areas we were traveling in and so on, was able to kind of put that over. But people like Brian and Alain de Cadenet, they were the ones which everybody loved.
Did you have aspirations to be a race car driver ever?
No, I did. Oh, yeah. I think every one of us as kids did.
We all thought we were good enough, right?
We all dabbled around in little Minis and Coopers and stuff. And I was at school with one kid who did a lot of hill climbing and so on. And so I spent quite a bit of time going to a lot of the hill climbs and the sprints and so on. Mm-hmm. And then and the other guy who was very, very into motor racing, who was a kid at school, he got smart and became a pilot for British Airways. Right. He's now retired and living in luxury in a beautiful valley near Bath.
Those pesky career choices we make, right? But
I think more than anything else, it was, I think I knew I was destined as a driver that I was going to be living motor racing vicariously because I would be dead very, very quickly. And so it was that made me really appreciate these guys, how damn good they were.
Yeah.
And it's even in today.
Sure.
You look at a Grand Prix and people, unless they really follow it, they don't necessarily understand exactly, why is this guy always at the back?
Right.
Right. But the interesting thing is those 22 people on a grid will usually lap within a second, second and a half. I mean, incredible skill to be able to do that, to have 22 people on a circuit. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this Grand Prix, the Australian Grand Prix that just went by.
I did. It was crazy.
Those guys, I'm amazed they even ran the race.
I am too. I like the fact that they run the race, and we were talking to somebody on the show a couple of weeks ago that there's always the element of danger in racing, and that's it should be part of it. I don't want to see people killed, but if it becomes all simulators, then I don't know. It changes the equation. But that was some tricky driving. I mean, when those cars were just snapping into 180s and 360s, it was pretty scary.
Yeah, I felt so sorry for the young kid in his first race. Doesn't even get to the start of the grid.
He was sobbing. I mean,
I know.
Lewis's dad came over and consoled him.
That was so nice.
It really was. It's a camaraderie that shows that doesn't matter if you're first or last. And like you said, the difference between first and last is not a great divide because any of those last place guys would smoke me and you on any given day. They could be in a minivan and I could be in a 1,000 horsepower or whatever, right?
Right, absolutely.
So the Goodwood Revival and the Goodwood Festival of Speed. I mean, two wonderful bucket list events for people. I would imagine that those sell out pretty quickly for you.
Yeah, well, the Revival always from the day it first started, even when people weren't too sure what it was.
Right.
I pretty much didn't have any problems with. The Festival of Speed was a harder work. Although it came out before the Revival, and in England it is almost like a gospel event. It is almost like a religious event.
Right.
I don't think the American market recognized exactly what it was.
Right.
We all go to this big old house in the country, and we all sit around and watch cars go up a half-mile hill or whatever.
Right. In uncomfortable clothes. In uncomfortable clothes.
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't have to with Festival Speed.
Oh, they do. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so it was always a harder sell. I don't think sellers were, but it took longer to, like this year, for instance, I'm sold out on all my programs, but I got like 3 places still on the Festival of Speed.
Sure.
And that's almost the way it goes.
That's great.
So it's, I think if I was younger, because I am about 50.
I thought you were 45. I was going to guess, but
I would actually do it the other way around now, as I would start bringing European people to America.
Right.
I think motor racing has got a great future again. I think the way that Indy cars are going and so on, I think it's going to be a great period coming up.
Be great, it'd be great to bring people from Monaco to Vegas and to see, for them to see. Oh my God, the crazy. Or Miami. I mean, Miami is amazing. Yeah. Austin is amazing. I mean, there's three great venues, and there's so many things that you can do that are kind of. I mean, it's funny when you see the drivers in Austin, and they've got a cowboy hat. Max Verstappen has a cowboy hat on. I mean, they're into it. They love that kind of thing.
I think that. Generally, the field, the operators would like it a little detuned,
right?
A little bit too American football kind of promotion and so on.
Sure.
I know that when I was talking to one of the drivers who was told that he was going to be put on a plinth and come up through the floor to be introduced,
right.
Kind of like, what the hell am I?
What am I, Mick Jagger or something?
So I think the drivers sometimes it's a little bit over the top for them, but nonetheless, it's a business.
Yeah.
They all understand it's a business.
Well, and I think that we all, have a tendency, if you do what you love, sometimes you have a hard time remembering that it's a business. I'm the same way here sometimes. It's easy to kind of get lost in your own world, if you will. And I love the idea that you're taking, the Alfa Romeo Owners Club, you're going to the rooftop test track for Fiat, which has got to be one of the coolest places on earth.
It is. It's the Lingotto, which is the old Fiat factory.
Right.
And they now has a hotel right in the middle. It's a big shopping center now with the roof still open. And Nelly has a fabulous gallery up there. But it's a high point. We roll into Turin. We do a couple of the museums, which they have one incredible museum, one of the best museums in the world. But the high point is we all walk up, go to the elevator and go up, and next minute we're out on the track.
Wow.
And it's quite impressive. You don't realize how, this thing was built in 1920s.
Yeah.
The way they built the cars, where they started the cars off at the bottom and they would move them up a floor, until eventually when they were finished, they'd roll out onto the roof. They would do about 10 laps of the roof. And at the far end, there's a ramp that goes down to the road. And they come rolling off that down to the road.
Wow.
It was really quite something. We always joke about, people ask me, do you prefer to be in France or Italy or Spain or whatever? And I said, well, touring business-wise, it's wonderful. France is very organized and very no surprises.
Right.
But sometimes they can be a little bit stiff. However,
right.
Italians, not quite so organized. They're not bad, but they're not quite so organized. But they are happy. Something goes wrong, and they laugh. Oh, it went wrong, but don't worry, no problem. And after you get over the shock when you're in business, that something working the way you thought it should be, and then realize that they have so many plan A's, B's, C's, and D's as they go along. Right. It all works out.
That's fantastic. Well, do you have to fast for a couple of weeks before you go do these gourmet tours?
That was the other thing is you always have to recognize your clients. These people have they pay a lot of money to go on this.
Sure.
You're not going to go into a burger joint,
right?
Not that there's that many there, but I always make sure that we have hotels, which are not necessarily 5-star hotels, which don't suit a group anyway, but sometimes can be just too tight.
Right.
We need a hotel that will be loose. They know they're going to have a bunch of guys and gals who are, very talkative, very loud.
Right.
And then we pick up every area we go to. We use restaurants, and most of these restaurants I've used for years.
Right.
On my Italian, when I do the Monaco Historics, I then also do afterwards. We do 5 days in Monaco, and then we come down into Italy, and we end up on the coast, the Iberian coast, for a couple of days just to chill out from being in Monaco for 5 days.
Right. It's a little overload, right?
Yeah, and then we go down to Maranello, and then so we do the whole Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini, all that stuff, and it's really, really great fun. But there is a little, I'm not going to tell you where it is, but there's a little trattoria
right
in between Modena and Bologna, and I stumbled on it. Another race driver actually told me about it.
Right.
Italian guy. And it was a young couple who just had this little building in this little village, and a trattoria just generally does cooks meals through the day, and usually by the evening they're done.
Right.
And they were, I think their ages were somewhere in the region, I think about, when I saw them, was about 30 years of age.
Oh, wow.
A long time ago now, because Christina, it's Fabrizio and Christina still run the place. The best real Italian home.
Yeah.
But when I first went in there, Christina was just about to produce an offspring.
Right.
She was waddling around the place, doing everything. And she was literally a week later, she gave birth. This year, her 22-year-old birth was now serving in the restaurant, going to college.
How fun is that?
Restaurant. And I had groups there every year, except for the COVID.
Right.
All that time. We're really, really close friends. It's a place I would go to when I'm over there without a group. I always make sure that's one of the places I go to. But the food is so tremendous. When I come back and get, feedback from people, while we'll be in some incredibly expensive restaurants, Christina and Fabrizio are inexpensive.
Right.
They're inexpensive because they really serve local Italian families in this little village area.
Sure.
And so my most inexpensive meal is the most popular. Everybody just says, my God, if I was going to live in Italy, I'd live in that village just so I could eat.
Sure. Well, you see that you go to New York City, you never go to anything that's the top 100 restaurants, because they'll either be so difficult to get in, or snooty, or the portions are terrible, or there's a lot of, you try to go down into the mid-range pricing of true cuisine. I would say. Now, you also do on the Le Mans Classic. You do a celebrity dinner on the Mulsanne Strait.
Yeah, well, actually, right on the old house, which is on the Mulsanne. It's on the left,
right?
In the old days, it used to be where drivers go and have a drink.
Right.
Nowadays they would do such a thing. But the owner of it has. He's had it for about 25 years now, right. I think. And the only problem, you go there and it's a wonderful atmosphere, because it's the history of Le Mans. He bought it from the restaurant from the previous owner, who had it since, I think, about 1920 or something.
Right.
So you go into the place and it just absolutely reeks of history. It's wonderful. The only problem nowadays is that because of the safety factors, these cars are going by. They're now going by that restaurant 200 miles an hour plus. In the old days, car would go through there at 90 miles an hour.
Right.
If it had an accident, it wasn't dramatically bad. But nowadays, one of those cars gets airborne or gets into an accident, they have to basically put sidings up,
right,
to protect anybody looking. So when we go to the restaurant, we eat in the restaurant, and the cars are screaming by me. But we go upstairs. So here's a whole bunch of us in the bedrooms upstairs watching the cars because we have to get over the morning.
Oh, that's great.
Great feeling. Great feeling of being there.
And your other passion and business is art, and you represent three fantastic artists. I have one of your guys' pictures. I've got the Oscar Davis has a 1930 Monaco GP print. It was, I think, 312 of 500 that was signed by Rene Dreyfus. And it's one of my favorite pieces that I have.
Lovely piece. Tell him he's done well because it's a sold out piece and it's gone up in value.
Yeah, good to know.
Not that people should buy art for value, but it's always nice to know.
Yeah, you get that same question we get asked all the time is, what's this thing going to be worth in 10 years? Well, I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. Are you buying it to enjoy it or are you buying it as an investment? I don't,
Yeah.
If it's the latter, I don't know. I can't tell you that, and I can't answer that, and I don't want to answer that because I don't want you to go tell your wife, well, Stuart said that it was going to be worth more money in 5 years.
Yeah. No, I have very, very few clients who are investors. All of my clients pretty much are into the racing and into the sport.
Sure.
And so it's very easy and enjoyable to do these events. The Long Beach Grand Prix is coming up next month. I actually had missed it for 2 years because it fell at the same time as the Goodwood members meeting.
Right.
So I had to make a choice, and so I did been doing the members meeting. But this year is the 50th anniversary of the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I said I don't care. It was probably will cost me money, but
right.
I will take a booth at the Long Beach Grand Prix in a heartbeat. There must probably going to be more people there that we all know from TV and so on, from motor racing and all forms of motor racing.
Right.
I mean, an awful lot of people there who I've met over the years, and it'll be almost like a homecoming week.
Absolutely.
And then on the Thursday, I think they still have some tickets. They have the big dinner, RDC dinner.
Yeah.
And it's not inexpensive, but it is one of the best evenings in motor racing. They do one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast.
Right. I think they're honoring this year. It's Brian
Redman.
Yeah.
Mario Andretti and Alain de Cadenet.
Yeah, not too shabby.
No, and they did that because normally they just have one guy each year, but because it's the 50th anniversary, they took Brian Redman, who won the first race.
Right.
And then Mario, of course, because he's Mario.
Right.
I mean, more times than anywhere.
Sure.
And a great speaker, great guy to listen to. And then Alain de Cadenet, who I think won more times at Long Beach than any of the other.
And hosted by Bobby Rahal, who does a great job. We saw him. We saw him at Corning at Watkins Glen when they did the Zach Brown honor, and he was great. He just is good at it.
Quite a few years ago now, Nicholas Watts had done a beautiful painting of the Grand Prix film Grand Prix with James Garner in it, and it's a beautiful painting, big one. And Bobby comes by, and he literally does one of these double take kind of things. He's walking by, and they're always so busy they don't really have time to stop and talk.
Right.
And then he went boom. He said, "My God!" He said, "That film got me into motor racing."
Right.
And so he is now the proud owner of that piece.
I love
very nice man too.
I loved what you said. I read a quote that you had somewhere that said, "If somebody says nice painting, I love the frame. You may have well overdone the frame." That's great. I like these new canvas. They put the canvas around the edges, and you don't need a frame, and you just put a nail in the wall and put it there, and
that's what they call giclées,
right?
Which is a very nice way of saying. It's sprayed on,
right?
The picture sprayed on, and so in French, giclé is to spit,
right?
Right, because it's called giclé. It's a nice way of saying, well, we spat on it,
right? But, and it won't hurt it if you spat on it, right?
Yeah. Now it has its own market. We do very well with them.
Sure.
But the old prints, which has changed a lot. Because of modern times.
Right.
Now a computer can reproduce the artist's work quicker, better, and cheaper.
Sure.
It used to be that we'd have to do 500 runs to make it even viable.
Right.
And it would take a number of years to sell a 500 run. Now, a giclé, you can do a giclé reproduction.
Right.
You can do a copy of 2 or a copy of 25,
right?
Because it's on a computer and you run it
whenever it's it's kind of built to order, right?
Yeah, and it opens up another market for people who would not normally be able to be into that market.
Well, I'm certain that we could do this all day. But let people know how they can find you. Your website is Steve Austin's Automobilia, and you get the longest website I think I've ever seen.
I know. We never knew how to name it because it used to be Steve Austin's Great Vacations.
Right.
Then Automobilia got dumped on it,
That's great.
So we changed it into Steve Austin's, and what is it? Steve Austin's
Automobilia and Travel.com.
And Travel.com, yeah.
Got to have the travel.
Yeah.
So I got one last question for you. This is my favorite question I get to ask every day. What's your daily driver?
Oh, God. Well, if you asked me a few years ago, I would have been a little bit more
Well,
nice.
Tell me what you had a few years ago. We'll go with that.
Historically, from England, I grew up in England as a kid. I remember the day the E-Type Jaguar came out.
Right.
It was £2,000, which was the average income in England. Annual income was £1,500. Wow. £2,000.
Wow.
I had never dreamed I would ever own an E-Type. I just loved the car.
Right.
And I ended up owning so many damn E-Types. At one time, I had 4 of the darn things.
Wow.
Mainly to keep one running.
Yeah,
but,
grab a part from here and a part from there, and
yeah. But I've had quite a few exotics over a period. But
sure.
We live in Oregon, in the countryside. The roads are not great. You don't want to be running a Ferrari or a Maserati.
Sure.
Or anything. Not that I'm at that level where I want to own multiple Ferraris.
Right.
I have a very good friend in Arizona who has 7 of them in his garage.
That's
I vicariously live through him.
Exactly.
Now, God, you're going to kill me for this. We have a Kia, what they call a Carnival. We bought it because it's the biggest car, and we could put the dogs in there.
Right.
And we got 2 Goldens, and anybody who's ever had a Golden knows that they'll destroy hair and mess. They'll destroy a car. We bought that car purely to make sure we have one dog car. Well, and then the one I drive when I'm home is a Nissan Armada. I mean, this is
Armada. Nice. Well,
actually a great car.
Sure. You know what I always say, Steve? No matter what you're driving, you can still hit the apex of the corner.
But now when I'm in Europe and I'm not on a tour,
right,
and I'm just dinking around doing some business, I always rent an Alfa Romeo.
Oh, nice. Yeah. How cool is that? Because you don't get opportunities here to rent an Alfa Romeo. They're not here for whatever reason. Well, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for getting up a little early for us, and
thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, being on the show. We'll catch you in just a couple of minutes on the Classic Automall Show.
The Classic Auto Mall has more than 1,000 vehicles for consignment in our huge 8-acre climate-controlled showroom. It's a real indoor mall. If you'd like to know all the advantages of buying and selling a car through consignment, the information is available on our website, or you can talk to a classic car specialist who can answer all your questions. It's easy, safe, convenient, and it doesn't matter where you are. We sell worldwide. See our huge selection of classic and collectible vehicles at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall show from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Another fantastic guest, Steve Austin. I want to go do every one of those tours that he's done.
Oh,
I want to have dinner
they
on
look
the
so wonderful.
I know, the Mulsanne Strait in that house. I'm afraid the cars will go flying through the living room. I love it.
Discovering is Oregon seems to be a hub of car guys.
It really
Keith
is.
is there.
Yeah, Keith is there, and a lot of things going on out there in Oregon.
Yeah.
And lots of rain.
Always.
And misty and cloudy and all that good stuff. But I guess they're kind of used to it. So, hey, don't forget to coming up April 24th through the 25th of 2025, in case you're listening to this in the future. Our friends at Carlisle Auctions are having another 2-day sale down in Carlisle in conjunction with their swap meet, flea market, extravaganza, car corral, everything else that they have there. CarlisleAuctions.com is the website, and go check them out if you get a chance, and tell them Uncle Stuart sent you. The birthday boy.
Yep.
So what are we going to talk about today? How about where did we sell cars in the past week?
Where to?
How about Port Angeles, Washington, Cookeville, Tennessee, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, Decatur, Georgia, Kinston, North Carolina, twice, Westchester, Pennsylvania, Manhattan, Kansas, Williamstown, New Jersey, Manheim, Pennsylvania, Harbor Springs, Michigan, Jackson, New Jersey, Cincinnati, Ohio, Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, I don't even know, Schenectady, New York, Watsonville, California, Bloomington, Pennsylvania, Honeybrook, Pennsylvania, Hamburg, Pennsylvania, Salem, New Hampshire, Toledo, Ohio.
Hasbrook Heights, immortalized in song by Burt Bacharach.
Burt Bacharach, my mother used to think he was just the stuff. And when Dionne Warwick was singing his songs, and man.
Honeybrook. Apparently a car
It's
hub.
crazy.
Yeah, talk about Oregon. How about Honeybrook, Pennsylvania?
They've got a golf course.
Every week.
Every week we have some, and they have a pretty nice golf course down there.
They sure
too.
do.
So, and that's where retired guys go, and then retired guys buy cars. And
Very nice.
you put 2 and 2 together, Steve, and you come up with 4.
Right, but don't blink through town. You'll miss it.
You will miss it, except at that one traffic light where you come and you wait for an hour to get through because you can't see around the building, so they have a delayed thing, and it's like, okay.
Shout out to Honeybrook.
Yeah, good old Honeybrook. Don't forget the Pat Travers Band. We haven't talked about that much. How about that Pat Travers Band? We haven't talked about them.
JR's now checking their schedules. Yeah. Let's see if they're touring or just finished.
If they're touring or just finishing tour.
Their finale tour. What do they call it? The goodbye tour?
The farewell tour, version 27D. So what was I going to get? Oh, I know. We were talking about concerts upcoming. And you were talking, the comedian Ron White's going to be at Parks coming up. And then I saw that Steve Winwood's going to be in Wilkes-Barre coming up, and he's great. He is fantastic. And then there was something else. Oh, I saw Vince Gill is going to be somewhere.
Isn't he with the Eagles?
He was, but I think he's doing some of his solo stuff now as well, too. I think he's still with the Eagles. I mean, I would think that you'd have to drag somebody out of the Eagles. No, we want you to leave. No, I'm not going anywhere.
He's got his own catalog of stuff.
Yeah, he's got an amazing catalog.
Oh, sure.
And what a voice. So new arrivals this week. How about the 1913 Ford Model T Runabout? This might be the nicest one you've ever seen. Midnight Blue and Black over Black, AACA Senior Grand National winner, near perfect restoration, 177 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine, 2-speed planetary transmission, stunning brass. How about the 2017 for a more modern version? 2017 Porsche 718 Boxster. What a lot of fun car to drive.
Talk about a contrast there. It's 100 years apart, and boy, you get a lot more in 2017 than you did in 1913.
Yeah, Agate or Agate, gray metallic over black. Is it gray, Gray, or Grey?
Oh. I mix that up sometimes.
I don't know if I do too. It's like theater, RE or ER. I don't know. Is it gray or gray, Steve? Please find this out, and then let's consistently do this. I used to be really anal about the way things were written. V-8, 4-speed for trans. It had to all just be exact and the same every time, and if it wasn't, it'd make me crazy.
Well, because of the character limitations in our write-ups, all the dashes are taken out. So
you what you can't put in any kind of thing that goes on the internet? Internet is the plus sign.
Oh,
if you put the plus sign in it, it makes some gobbledygook stuff. And
hashtags, too.
Hashtags. So just don't forget that.
Anyway, back to the Porsche.
8,986 actual miles, pampered, 300 horsepower, 2-liter, turbo Boxster 4-cylinder engine. This thing is a beast, though.
Yeah.
They will go.
And handle.
And handle like a go-kart. 6-speed PDK automatic transmission. What a fun driver. I mean, this is a lot of car for the money. And probably almost as fun, probably pretty close to the same fun as the 911.
Some people say they're better balanced.
It's lighter. It's not, the 911 has gotten rather large, in case you hadn't noticed. You put on a few pounds there, Porsche.
That's right.
So how about the it seems like we have one of these every week, too. The 2008 Ford Mustang Bullitt. What is that, Highland Green? Yeah. I'm just kidding. Yes, of course it's Highland Green.
Yeah.
Over dark charcoal, 1,240 actual miles.
Wow.
Yeah, one of 4,377 built. I think we've had all of them. 315 horsepower, 4.6-liter, 3-valve V8, showroom fresh, comes with a window sticker. Oh, it's got the Tremec 5-speed manual. And then you've got...
I just want to say that every Bullitt we've had sells.
Yeah, it does.
So if you're interested in one, this is a super low mileage one, and check it out.
Do not dilly-dally, as my mother used to say. How about the 1940, opposite spectrum, 1940 Ford Deluxe sedan, Boyd Coddington red over saddle, my old buddy Boyd. Numerous first-place show wins, blingy 350, turbo hydromatic 350 automatic, and leather interior and the Wheelsmith custom wheels. Surprised they didn't put Boyd wheels on when it's Boyd.
Right, exactly. I didn't know he had, until I wrote this, that he had a line of paints.
Well, I didn't either. So,
well, when you have a name like Jay Leno or Boyd Coddington, put it on everything.
And I was business partners with him, and I didn't even know he had paint. How do I know?
You might be on that contract.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a whole other story. We won't even get into.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that big of a deal. Son of a gun. No. It should have had the Boyd Coddington wheels on it, but it's nothing but that 1940 Ford Deluxe Tudor sedan. Normally they're in black or blue, and not much to them. In red, it really pops.
It does pop.
It looks great.
It reminds me of like, what was that? Oh, there was a bunch of children's books that were written in the 30s and 40s, and they always had a little red car like that. And it just reminds me of that.
There
you go.
How good am I? And last but, I got two more. 72 Dodge Dart Swinger, eggshell white over beige. Really works for that car, though. It sounds a little mundane in the color department, but check it out because it really looks good in that color.
And it's got a stripe, which is cool.
And a stripe, and it's got a worked 440. It's a blast to drive, and a 8 3/4 inch sure grip axle. Very well sorted car. 4-wheel power disc brakes, which is nice. And last but not least, a rare duck here. How about the 1965 Ford Mustang T5 hardtop? You say, well, I see a million of those. What can be rare about that? Well, glad you asked, Steve. It is one of 340 in the United States that were built for overseas, and it's number 13 in the T5 registry.
Wow.
Top loader 4-speed with a 289 4-barrel. Nicely restored, but this car is rare. And most people wouldn't know it. You'd walk past it and just think, well, that's just another Mustang, 65 Mustang hardtop. But oh no, it is more. And so, it's one of those ones that will catch you flat-footed sometimes.
There is no end to special Mustangs.
There's no end to special cars, period. Just when you think you know everything, you know nothing.
Exactly.
And I don't mean you personally, although I could use you as an example because it's my birthday, so I can
That's whatever
say
you
what
want.
I want.
Right.
We'll give you this for your birthday. We bring it up. Little ding.
Okay.
You get that. And Pat Travers plug.
Yeah.
Lima, New York.
Lima. Oh.
Know where that is?
I do not.
South of Rochester.
It is.
Okay.
And that is coming up. I got to change the page here because that is March 26th and 27th.
So that's next week. Yeah, next week.
But here's the show you want to go to. On the 28th, Toronto, Canada.
Oh,
Toronto's a great city.
And I've never been to Toronto.
And I'll be at a place called the Rock Pile.
Well, I've got to go there. I wonder if I should wear my leather and my spikes and my boots and my platform shoes.
Do it.
I don't have any of that stuff. Of course I don't.
I heard Spinal Tap is being remade.
I think they are. I think we're going to do version 2. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. When we return, we'll continue with the Classic Auto Mall show and speak to our friend from Sports Car Market Magazine, Mr. Keith Martin. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Whether you want to buy or sell a classic, collectible, or special interest vehicle, you need to visit the Classic Auto Mall website for more information. If you're looking to buy, you can easily search our inventory of more than 1,000 vehicles on the web at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall show from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania, exit 298 on the Pennsylvania Turnpike with our buddy Keith Martin joining us with our weekly segment. Keith's blog comes to life. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. How are you today, Stuart?
I'm doing great because it's sunny here, and you've got wet weather and damp and dark and all that stuff. We just had Steve Austin from Great Vacations Tours. Was just on the show. So 2 Oregons in a row. It's kind of cool.
We've done a couple of tours with Steve Austin, and I have to tell you, he's the best.
Oh, my God. I just would kill to do one of those tours. It sounds like so much fun and so done the way it's supposed to be done.
Well, he does a nice mix of cars and culture, like Stonehenge and things like that. And so you really get an immersive process when you're with Steve. So I can't recommend him any more highly.
Yeah, and great guy, and he, one of those guys that you could just talk to all afternoon, and obviously we have things to do. So your latest blog is you got 3 days of sunshine and seize the moment per se.
I did. The cars love to be driven.
Yes.
And the sad part is when a car sits for a couple of weeks, you reach a tipping point. Like after a month or so, things will start to go bad in your hydraulics, in your electronics. I mean, and it's like the car just says it's going to screw with you for leaving it alone.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
That's what
we had a couple of nice days, and we took the Jag out, which I wrote about, and then we decided that I've got a 75 911S. Now, how far is Hershey from you?
Hershey is about 60 miles.
Okay, so that's where I think I told you I bought that car.
Yes, that was a great story. I love that story.
Hershey swapped me, got it here, and it's a G-body car, so it's narrow-bodied, and it's a primitive car.
Right.
The Jaguar is a luxurious car. The 911 has no power steering, no power brakes. It's a light. It weighs 2,500 pounds, which is about the same as a Carrera S.
Right. Wow. I didn't realize it was so light.
Yeah, and it's because it's pre-safety.
Right. It added a little dirt.
It's an unbelievable delight because it throws you back to when sports cars were primitive and required muscle to work. And if you didn't do your job, you weren't going to get where you wanted to go.
Absolutely. And to make a little work out of things is something maybe we're lacking overall in a lot of things in life. And to make it, we've made things dumbed down and too easy, it seems like. I mean, have you driven a new 911? It's like driving my grandmother's big Oldsmobile. It's huge.
Well, look how much does it weigh? Like 3,500 pounds?
Yeah.
I mean, some big number. I had an SL55, which I dearly loved, but it weighed almost 5,000 pounds.
Right.
And so no matter how good your suspension is, 5,000 pounds is kinetic energy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the older 911s, there was just something special about not only the way they felt and drove, but the way, just the smell and the visuals of them and the way that everything was laid out, just like it was supposed to be done. Like the template for a car should be an early 911.
When you look across that dashboard and see all those big gauges, orange on black, you're in something special.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't realize the thrill of driving something like that. Manual transmissions it's the first thing we say this on our job application is, can you drive a manual transmission? And if they put a question mark next to it, we move to the next person. So
I think that's going to change, Stuart, because my son, who's just about to turn 18, he can drive stick or manual, and he doesn't care.
Right.
I mean, stick or automatic.
Right.
I mean, to him, it's just a car.
And either way, it's fine. Right.
We've got a 91 Alpha S4 automatic, because I had a stroke, so I can't use my left leg.
Right.
And it's kind of, in a way, a hopeless car compared to my early Giulietta Spiders and Giulias. But my son loves it because even though it's a late model car and it's an automatic, it's an Alfa Romeo.
Right. And that's cool.
It looks like something. Yeah, it handles well. It has enough power. So I'm not so sure. I think it's good to drive a stick, but I'm not so sure it's that important to young kids.
Well, it doesn't seem to be. It's funny that you mentioned Alfa Romeo. Steve Austin says when he goes to Europe, he always rents an Alfa Romeo when he gets his rental car over there to give his kind of sports car fix, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get those around here. They don't. Does Alfa sell anything? They don't sell. Do they?
Giulia.
Oh, the Giulia. That's right. They do have the Giulia. And the Stelvio. That's right.
I was the sales manager for the Alfa Romeo and Ferrari dealership back when the Milano came in.
Right.
And I have to tell you that Alfa has struggled for every day that it's sold cars in this country.
Right.
And the reason for that is, in my opinion, having sold them new, they simply are incapable of building a car to a Korean or Japanese standard.
Right. And that's where the bar has been set, and you can't unset it. Right.
No, you don't. When you buy a new car for $30,000 or $40,000, you don't want check engine lights and return to the dealer for update and all the different things that they are wonderful cars. But I have so little interest in cars that have a lot of electronics.
Right. Well, as I always jokingly say, I looked under my wife's Mercedes SUV, under the seat, and it looks like the wiring for the space shuttle. There's so many wires under there, and it's just crazy. But, if you look at companies like Alfa Romeo and Fiat and, that are big or semi-successful in other parts of the world, it doesn't translate. And I think, a lot of that has to do with what you just said. The build quality of the Japanese cars changed everything, including General Motors and Ford and Chrysler.
I agree. And not only that, the Koreans have taken the Japanese to a new level.
Do you remember the first time you ever rode in a Hyundai? It was the biggest, it was the worst car you'd ever been in. It had a weird, funky smell to it, and things were weirdly oily plastic, and it was and now it's an amazing car.
Yeah. They were bad.
Yeah.
They were truly bad. I mean, it's interesting that in our lifetimes, we've watched that company pull itself up and say, we're going to be better than Toyota.
Yeah, and they did it. And I mean, you look at what they were able to accomplish, and to start out that poorly, talk about a stacked deck that you may not be able to overcome. It's surprising, as you said, that they overcame it. And of course, Kia and Hyundai and any of those type of guys are making. I mean, I remember when the Kia Stinger came out. That thing was cool, and it was like, wait, what is that? That's a Kia?
I want to jump back a little bit. So I want to talk about when we fired up the 911. It's so interesting how each of these old analog cars, and we talked about this last week, they have their own rhythm.
Right.
And if you're the magic guy who knows how many pumps of the throttle you give, how long you wait the key to turn on, how much you pull the hand throttle on, how much, I believe that we bond with our cars to the degree that they are imperfect and need us to bring them to life.
Absolutely. And the most fun thing that I read when we take a new consignment in, we have a sheet called operating instructions, and it's the most fun read of the whole packet because it's so interesting. One, all capital letters, do not touch the throttle, or do not do this or do this, and make sure that you got, and it's so great. But you take an old Porsche 911, and the one that you bought came really originally from Al Holbert's dealership, right around here.
I've got the original manual with the sign off from the dealership.
How cool is that
for the car? Yeah, I mean it's really, and it's a Sahara beige car, unusual color, still has the cloth interior.
Right.
But I wanted something. I've had some Tiptronics and some PDKs, and as I mentioned last week, you just put those in drive and go away. The Sportomatic makes you actually shift the car.
Right. Yeah.
And I wanted to have that.
Are you surprised that more cars didn't have that as an option, that there weren't more that were kind of that way, that were a clutchless manual, if you will?
No, I think that before I had my stroke, if I walked by a Porsche with a Sportomatic, I would like hold a cross up and say, "Oh my God, that's like sacrilege! How can you do that?" Or my V12 Jag with an automatic.
Right.
I absolutely dismissed those cars without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. I know the feeling. There's a lot of cars that are like that you would walk past, and we say this all the time. A mid-'80s Corvette, as you and I talked about, is the perfect example of that. It's a beautiful car if you get past the fact that everything you have in your head about it. And that's the problem that you run into with these old cars. And a 911 from Al Holbert's dealership has got to be provenance of all provenance for a car, right? That's if that's where it came from, that adds a cool factor to it as well.
It does, although, ultimately what I found that when you go to resell a car, the cool factor is less important than the condition of the car.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing that I think people don't realize is that, a lot of times we will take undercarriage pictures of a car and a guy will have never seen his car from that angle, and he's quite frightened when he sees it. He said, what the hell? That's not my car, is it? And it is your car, and there's a big rust hole here, and there's this, and a lot of people never see that. And I think in this day and age, condition trumps everything, right?
I recently wrote a story about going to Missoula, Montana to buy a two-stroke Saab.
Right.
And it was the very early days of eBay, and all you got was one picture and a note from the seller saying, ran and drive perfectly when I put it in the garage 4 years ago, and don't worry, you can drive it home to Portland, no problem.
No worries, right?
And that's all you got.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it. I mean, I remember descriptions being red 4-speed was the entire description of a car that you would buy, and of course, still bought it anyway, right? We're ready to roll the dice.
Sure. When I was selling a lot of cars to Europe, we would have a basic set of descriptions. It would be runs and drives around the block. Runs and drives, and we'll get to the container at the dock.
Because it's going in and you talk about people who are trusting, people from overseas who buy classic cars from the United States. I'm always amazed that they seem to do what they say they're going to do more often than people that I sell that are, just around the corner practically. When a guy from Denmark says he's buying your car, he's buying your car. He's not going to back out.
Well, they develop relationships. We had a fellow named Joop Stolze who was in De Leer, and we sold a lot of cars to.
Right.
And we had a very good relationship. He trusted my descriptions, and it was just when fax machines were invented.
Right.
And so prior to fax machines, you'd have to mail somebody some Polaroid pictures of a car.
Right.
And with the fax machine, at least you could give a long description.
Right. And I love that paper that was shiny and slippery, and you couldn't write on it with a pen. That was really interesting. We get people that buy cars from us a lot of times, and they'll say, will this car drive to Florida, which is what you just mentioned a minute ago. Will this car make it to Florida? Yeah, it probably will, but it probably wouldn't be the best idea if you're doing it to save $1. Now, if you and your son show up at the doorstep of our place and you've got a bag with a bunch of tools and duct tape and WD-40 and all that, and you and your son are going to make adventure of driving to Florida, that's a different story. That's a different animal.
Yeah. I go back and forth on the fly and drive thing because sometimes it's really cool. Right. Sometimes you just want to ship the car and get it to you.
Yeah. You know that you're going to have some things that are going to need to be done. And we tell everybody that buys a car, look, if you're spending every penny you got, don't. Find something that you can have a little bit of leftover money so you can do all the things you want to do to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Stuart, I want to pitch people on subscribing to Sports Car Market.
Absolutely.
We've been here 37 years, and we're the voice of authority for the collector car market. We have, what I've told you the other day was that we have experts analyzing cars that make the trolls on BAT look like kindergartner people.
Well, it's exactly because these are professionals. This is what they do for a living.
Yeah, and we vet they look at every car and they give you an analysis. They give you the VIN number, the mileage, and they tell you whether they think it was a good buy or a bad buy.
Sure.
100 cars a month.
And you do this not only for live auction cars, but also for the online auctions as well, too, right?
Absolutely. As online auctions have become a more important part of the market, we've increased our coverage substantially.
Sure. Do you see that? I think there's a place for everybody. Maybe I'm just naive when I say that, but for live auctions, for online auctions, for retail dealers like me, for wholesalers, I think there's a place for everybody. Competition in that respect doesn't scare me.
It's a learning curve.
Right.
You know where I think the big question is right now? Well, first of all, let me give you the special offer for Sports Car Market. So it's, what are we on? Test Drive 6, sportscarmarket.com/test drive with the number 6.
Yeah.
And usually Sports Car Market's $88 a year. We have tens of thousands of subscribers.
Right.
This is $19.95 for 6 months, the deal of life.
It will be the greatest thing you ever do this year if you've never been a subscriber or never read the magazine. And I mean that because I've been a subscriber since I was in diapers. I'm just kidding. But it is a fantastic magazine, and we always have considered it the Bible of the hobby, and the legal files. You talk about the legal files. We should do a whole show on that. Well, as a matter of fact, one of these days we'll definitely do that because that is such a wealth of information about pitfalls and things to be careful of when you're buying a classic car.
It's the only column like that in the whole collector car world. Right. My favorite one was this guy has got his car. He's got his Lamborghini Gallardo. He goes by a valet parking. He throws the keys to the valet. The valet takes the car and drive off, but the valet doesn't actually work there.
He's just got the red jacket.
He just takes the keys, says thank you, and goes away. So now whose fault is that, right?
Right, exactly. You're just tossing your keys. So anyway, so let's one more time. Let's tell them where they can get this discount. It's sportscarmarket.com/testdrive6 with the number 6. The number 6. So, Keith, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on. We're enjoying this. I think we're just going to get better at this as we keep going every week, and we will definitely talk to you next week, and anxious to see what you have to say in your blog that comes out next Tuesday.
Well, I'll tell you, I came out. I've been driving old cars. They've been not letting me down, and I came out to find a giant screw in the tire of my new car.
Oh, nothing more painful.
We'll talk all about that next week.
Sounds great. Have a great week. Take care, Keith.
That's great. Great being here.
Yeah, Keith Martin, Sports Car Market Magazine. We'll be back with the Classic Automobile Show next week with a new guest and a new set of hour to talk about, right? See you then.
The Classic Auto Mall Show with their host, Stuart Howden, executive producer, Steve Sethier, produced and engineered by yours truly, J.R. Russ, video editor, Randy Lammy.
Available on ClassicAutomall.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Music courtesy of the Pat Travers Band. For tour dates, contact, and stuff, visit PatTravers.com. Produced by Car Smarts Media. Copyright all rights reserved.